Welcome. Settle in, find a comfortable position, and allow your breathing to slow. Tonight, we're traveling far back in time, to the world of late antiquity, to the fading days of the Roman Empire. Imagine yourself standing on a quiet street, somewhere on the edges of a once great city. The kind of place where broken columns lean toward the earth and weeds creep through cracked stones. The air is still touched with the faint scent of olive oil and wood smoke. A few voices drift from an open window nearby, soft and muffled, but otherwise silence. It is the 5th century, a time when Rome's power is slipping, slowly and then suddenly, like sand through an open hand. But for the people who lived then, for the farmers, the traders, the children at play in dusty courtyards, life continued, moment by moment, breath by breath. Tonight, we'll explore that world together. We'll begin by immersing ourselves in the rhythms of daily life during the Empire's decline, following the footsteps of ordinary people who lived quietly amid the great tides of history. From there, we'll turn to the story of a man, a single life shaped by the fall of Rome. We'll reflect on Odoacer, the soldier who would become king in Italy, and the shifting political landscape he came to rule. Later, we'll wander into the realm of mystery and archaeology, exploring the fading whispers of ancient Roman culture and what the ruins reveal about their changing beliefs, fears, and hopes. And finally, we'll step into a contrasting world, the elite and imperial circles, tracing how the wealthiest Romans lived, even as everything around them slowly unraveled. Let's begin our journey. Close your eyes if you wish, and let yourself drift as we enter the quiet, intricate patterns of life during the fall of Rome. Imagine waking before dawn. The air is cool and carries the faint scent of damp earth after a late autumn rain. In a small villa on the outskirts of Ravenna, the city that would one day replace Rome as the Western Empire as capital, a woman stirs from her bed of straw and wool. Her family sleeps nearby, sharing the same modest chamber. This is the late Roman world, a time when marble still gleams in certain places, but when the empire's pulse has slowed. For most people, daily life unfolds gently, following the patterns of the seasons, the fields, and the rising and setting sun and rural villages. Mornings begin with soft, familiar sounds. The low creak of wooden doors, the muffled thud of sandals on packed earth, and the distant calls of roosters stirring the fields awake. Outside, the mist settles low over stretches of farmland. Olive trees stand silent, their leaves catching the first faint rays of light. Food is simple, a crust of coarse bread dipped in watered wine. Perhaps a handful of figs, if they're in season. Grains and legumes form the backbone of most diets now. Meat, once a symbol of Roman abundance, has become rarer. The great trade routes that once carried spices and exotic flavors from across the empire are beginning to fade. One caravan at a time, people adapt. In the quiet of the morning, a farmer walks the length of his fields, touching the soil with practiced care. He knows the weight of every harvest, the delicate balance of too little rain or too much. Even as imperial armies fight along distant frontiers, his concerns remain close to the earth. Will there be enough grain to feed his family through the winter in the towns? Life follows a different rhythm, though shadows of the old Roman grandeur still linger. The marketplaces are smaller now, but they remain the heart of social life. Imagine the soft hum of voices under the tiled roofs, merchants unrolling bolts of rough-spun wool, clay amphorae stacked neatly along the walls, a baker sweeping fine white flour across a wooden counter before kneading dough by hand. Coins pass from palm to palm, their surfaces worn smooth. Prices fluctuate constantly as trade declines, and many people resort to barter. Public spaces, once alive with festivals and crowded games, have grown quieter. Amphitheaters stand empty, their stone seats cracked by time and weather. Some are repurposed, transformed into marketplaces, storage areas, even shelters for the poor. The rhythms of life are slowing, but there is still resilience, an instinct to adapt, to endure. Even as old traditions fade, faith offers constancy. Christianity has spread across the empire, shaping daily practices and guiding personal choices. Small gatherings form at dawn, prayers whispered in dimly lit chambers, where candles flicker against rough stone walls. For some, these quiet moments of devotion bring comfort, a reminder of order amid uncertainty. But older gods still linger in the countryside. Jupiter, Minerva, Mars, worshipped in hushed rituals passed down from generation to generation. In this transitional world, old and new beliefs coexist, sometimes uneasily, yet both tied to the same enduring need for meaning. There are whispers, though, of change, soft, persistent murmurs that drift through taverns and markets. Armies gather in the north, and refugees arrive from distant provinces, carrying stories of lands lost to invaders. Fewer ships sail the Mediterranean, fewer goods arrive from distant horizons. And yet, as the sun climbs higher and the warm light spills across tiled rooftops, daily life goes on. Children chase one another through narrow streets. A smith bends over his anvil, striking steady sparks into the air. A potter turns his wheel with calm precision. In this way, ordinary Romans, farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and mothers weave quiet lives amid the unraveling of an empire. Their days are filled with familiar patterns, small comforts, and simple labors, even as the larger world shifts beneath their feet. Imagine, for a moment, standing at the edge of a crumbling city. The air carries the faint Thames of salt from the distant Adriatic Sea. In the fading light, broken columns cast long shadows across uneven stone streets. Above, the sky stretches wide and pale, while in the distance, you hear the soft rhythm of hooves striking earth. Soldiers passing quietly beneath the worn gates of Ravenna. It is the year 476, the Western Roman Empire, the empire of Caesar and Augustus, of roads and aqueducts and once great legions, has reached its twilight. And here, amid these slow-moving tides, steps a figure whose name will come to mark a turning point: Odoacer. Odoacer's early life is shadowed by uncertainty, like so many in these unsettled times. He was born far from the traditional centers of Roman power, somewhere on the edges of the empire, perhaps among the Syri, a Germanic people who wandered the frontiers. Imagine him as a young man, tall and quiet, his footsteps carrying him across rugged landscapes where borders are no longer fixed and loyalties shift like the wind. He enters Italy as part of a world in motion, soldiers, families, and entire tribes drawn toward the wealth and promise of Roman lands. Even as that wealth is fading, Odoacer becomes a soldier. For years, he serves in the imperial forces, earning respect among his peers for his calm authority and measured strength. But these armies are no longer the disciplined legions of earlier centuries. They are fragmented, filled with men from many peoples: Romans, Goths, Syri, Huns, all bound loosely together by necessity, not loyalty. In the mid-5th century, Italy feels both fragile and tense. The empire's borders have fractured. Provinces, once thriving, now slip away. Vandals rule in North Africa. Visigoths hold sway in Gaul and Hispania, and the Huns have left their scars on the lands they once raided. Meanwhile, within Italy itself, power rests uneasily in the hands of generals and warlords, each commanding their own followers. One such figure is Orestes, a Roman general who rises to prominence by placing his young son, Romulus Augustulus, on the imperial throne in 475. Imagine this boy emperor, barely in his teens, wearing a crown too heavy for his head, seated upon a throne of fading grandeur. Around him, the old rituals of empire continue: purple robes, silver coinage, proclamations issued from Ravenna's quiet palaces. But the empire itself is little more than a shadow. The turning point comes when Orestes, seeking to solidify his power, refuses a demand from his own soldiers, men like Odoacer, who request lands in Italy in exchange for their service. It is a refusal that sets a quiet but irreversible chain of events into motion. Odoacer, with calm resolve, leads his followers in revolt. It is not a battle of grand armies clashing across open fields. It is smaller, swifter, carried out in the muted chaos of collapsing authority. Orestes is captured and executed. Romulus Augustulus, still a boy, is spared, sent into exile on a small estate by the sea. His name, meant to evoke Rome's founding, becomes instead a quiet epitaph, and so, in the late summer of 476, Odoacer does something remarkable and simple. He sends the imperial regalia, the crown, the purple robe, the scepter, eastward to Constantinople, to the Emperor Zeno, and with this gesture, he acknowledges what has already become reality. There will be no new Western emperor. The Roman Empire in the West is over. Yet life, as always, continues. Odoacer does not declare himself emperor. Instead, he assumes the title Rex, Italia, King of Italy. It is a subtle change, almost understated, yet profound. The world has shifted, though many ordinary people may not notice it immediately. Under his rule, Roman institutions persist in fragile form. The Senate still meets in Rome, issuing decrees in hushed voices. Roman laws remain in use, even as Germanic customs blend slowly into daily life. Churches continue to gather the faithful, and taxes, though burdensome, are still collected. For farmers in the countryside, for merchants in Ravenna, for craftsmen in small villages along the Po River, little changes overnight. Fields must still be tilled, bread must still be baked, lamps are still lit in the evenings as families gather around quiet meals. And yet, subtle but undeniable, like the fading echo of footsteps after a procession has passed, Odoacer's reign itself will not last forever. In 493, another figure, the Ostrogothic king Theodoric, will march into Italy, and Odoacer's rule will end, quietly, as so many reigns do. But by then, the Western Empire has long since passed into memory, its fall less a single moment than a slow unwinding stretched across decades. And so, we step back from Odoacer's world, the dusty streets of Ravenna, grows silent once more. The faint murmur of markets, the rustle of banners in the wind, the soft echo of sandals on stone, they all fade into stillness. The Western Roman Empire is gone, but its remnants endure, folded into the lives of those who remain. From here, we leave Odoacer's story behind and step into the realm of mystery and discovery. In the next segment, we'll wander through ruins and artifacts, exploring what archaeology and fading records reveal about how Roman culture transformed as the old empire gave way to something new. The silent ruins of Rome. Close your eyes, take a slow breath, and imagine yourself walking through the remains of a once great city. The sun is low, spilling pale gold across fragments of marble scattered on the ground. The air smells faintly of damp stone and distant pine, and a soft breeze stirs the wild grass that now grows where markets once thrived. Somewhere nearby, the call of a single bird echoes through an empty archway, and then fades into silence. You are standing in the hushed ruins of late antiquity, the quiet spaces where Roman life once unfolded in sound and color, now reduced to stone and shadow. Here, among cracked columns and fading mosaics, the story of a vanished world lingers, patiently waiting to be found. Archaeologists, centuries later, would begin peeling back these layers of history with careful hands and quiet tools. They brush away soil, grain by grain, revealing objects once held in ordinary Roman palms, clay oil lamps, smooth from touch, tiny glass beads, cloudy with age, fragments of amphorae still faintly scented with olive oil or wine. Each piece tells a story, not of emperors and battles, but of daily life. In the ruins of Pompeii, preserved beneath the ash of an earlier catastrophe, late Roman artifacts reveal how culture shifted during the empire's final centuries. Simple wooden spoons, worn from years of use, small bronze coins, minted under forgotten emperors, faded wall paintings showing both the old pagan gods and the emerging symbols of Christianity side by side. It is a strange, layered world, one where traditions overlap, coexist, and slowly dissolve into something new. Imagine wandering through an abandoned Roman villa, its tiled courtyard open to the changing sky. Your footsteps are soft against the cracked mosaic floor, where delicate patterns of vines and birds once shone in vivid color. Now, only fragments remain. In the shadow of the atrium, you find faint traces carved into the plaster walls, inscriptions scratched by hand. Some are simple names, perhaps left by workers or travelers long gone. Others are fragments of poetry, a line praising a lover's beauty, or mourning someone lost. These quiet voices, frozen in stone, speak across centuries. They tell us of ordinary lives, fleeting, tender, and familiar. People once stood here sharing laughter, telling stories, worrying over debts, whispering prayers. And then, one day, they were gone, leaving only these faint marks behind by the 5th century. Many Roman cities had begun to change. Their bustling forums and crowded theaters grew quieter. Public baths, once alive with conversation and splashing water, slowly emptied as aqueducts fell into disrepair. Imagine standing beside one of these aqueducts now, its great stone arches stretching into the distance. You hear only the faint rustle of wind through dry grass. No water flows here anymore. Yet the structure still stands, immense and silent, a reminder of an age when engineering shaped the land. In places, people dismantled these monuments stone by stone, reusing marble and brick to build new homes, new walls, new churches. Entire amphitheaters became quarries. Great temples were transformed into small chapels. It was not destruction out of malice, but adaptation, a quiet, practical reshaping of the old world into the new. Among the most striking remnants of this period are the symbols of shifting belief. In catacombs beneath Rome, dimly lit by lantern light, archaeologists discovered painted ceilings where Christian imagery slowly replaced Roman mythology. Where once the god Apollo rode his chariot across the sky, now there are images of Christ as the Good Shepherd gently carrying a lamb. The transformation was gradual, layered over generations, like fresh plaster applied to older walls. And yet, deep within the countryside, hidden in small shrines, offerings to Jupiter, Venus, and Mars continued long after the empire's official embrace of Christianity. Tiny altars, fragments of burnt incense, worn figurines, they reveal how slowly beliefs truly change and how old rituals linger in private, quiet corners of life. Beneath the earth, another kind of story unfolds, one of burial, memory, and transition. Late Roman cemeteries show a fascinating shift. Tombs blend Roman and barbarian customs, mixing delicate glass vessels with simple iron tools. Christian symbols with older amulets meant to protect the dead on their journey. Some graves hold small coins, left as payment for a safe passage into the next world, an echo of traditions far older than Rome itself. These objects, untouched for centuries, reveal a society at a crossroads, adapting, merging, and redefining itself, even as its political power waned. And so, as we walk among the ruins, we begin to sense that the fall of Rome was not a single, violent collapse, but something gentler, slower, almost imperceptible, like the steady fading of twilight into night. In the stillness, you hear it, the whisper of footsteps on forgotten roads, the murmur of a language once spoken by millions, now transformed into new tongues, the rustling of parchment scrolls, long dissolved into dust, their words carried forward only in fragments. This is what the ruins teach us, that the Roman world did not vanish, it shifted, transformed, and became the foundation of something new. Take one last slow breath as you imagine leaving the ruins behind, the soft evening light stretching across ancient stones. The wind carries with it the faintest echoes of a lost world. But the silence feels peaceful, timeless, and complete. Now we turn our attention to a different corner of this history. A glimpse into the lives of those who stood far from these quiet ruins. In our final segment, we step into the contrasting world of the Roman elite during the empire's waning days, exploring how wealth and power persisted, even as everything around them slowly unraveled. Behind the marble walls, imagine, for a moment, leaving behind the quiet ruins and empty marketplaces, and stepping through the polished gates of an aristocratic villa. The air changes here. Inside, the scent of beeswax and incense lingers beneath the high, painted ceilings. Sunlight filters through thin sheets of alabaster, softening the shadows. In the distance, you hear the faint ripple of water in a private fountain, echoing through wide marble halls. This is the world of the late Roman elite, a world that persists even as the empire slowly unravels beyond these walls. In cities like Rome, Milan, and Ravenna, wealthy senators and landowners still maintain sprawling estates. Their gardens are carefully tended, with cypress trees casting long, narrow shadows across stone paths. Servants move quietly, carrying trays of figs, honeyed wine, and warm bread baked in private kitchens. Inside, the rooms are adorned with intricate mosaics, gold leaf patterns curling across the walls, and frescoes painted generations earlier, when Rome's power was at its height. Imagine yourself walking barefoot across cool marble floors, the smooth surface chilled by the early morning air. Somewhere nearby, voices drift softly, the measured tones of a tutor reciting lines of Virgil to a young student. In another room, a scribe bends over parchment, copying a religious text by the pale glow of an oil lamp. The rhythms here are calm, measured, and insulated. Beyond the villa's gates, the empire weakens, but here, time seems almost suspended. Occasionally, these great villas come alive with the muted splendor of feasts and gatherings. Guests recline on couches draped in linen, sipping diluted wine while slaves move silently between them, refilling cups and placing dishes of olives, cheese, and roasted fish upon low tables. Conversation flows gently, but there is an awareness in the room, a quiet undercurrent of uncertainty. Senators discuss shifting alliances and distant battles in low, even tones, their words careful, as though speaking too loudly might disturb the fragile balance that remains. Above them, the painted ceilings display scenes of Rome's triumphs, chariots, banners, and victorious legions, but the glory they depict already belongs to another time. Step outside, beyond the cool marble courtyards, and the mood changes. The streets beyond these villas are quieter than they once were. Markets shrink as trade falters. Public fountains dry as aqueducts fail. For many ordinary Romans, survival has become the daily rhythm, securing enough grain, keeping homes intact, holding onto small rituals of comfort. And yet, within the villas, life continues, much as it has for generations. A senator sips his spiced wine, unaware that, in distant provinces, Roman authority no longer holds. A wealthy matron lights a small oil lamp before an altar, whispering prayers for her household, even as the old gods and the new compete for devotion. It is as though two worlds exist side by side, one of soft sandals on polished floors, and one of worn shoes on dusty roads. By the late 5th century, even these sheltered lives begin to feel the slow weight of change. The taxes that fund their comforts grow heavier. Villas, once symbols of permanence, become harder to maintain. Some are abandoned entirely, left to ivy and silence, their fountains dry, their walls fading beneath wind and rain. Imagine walking through one such empty villa, years after its owners have gone. The mosaics are cracked, the air smells faintly of damp earth, and the once glittering windows stand open to the wind. Even among the elite, time proves patient and steady. The empire fades for everyone, though the experience of that fading comes at different speeds. And yet, amid these changes, there is still a dream, a hope that Rome's order, its laws, its identity might endure. Many wealthy Romans send their sons to be educated in Constantinople, where the Eastern Empire continues, stronger and more secure. They write letters across the sea, carefully folded and sealed, reaching for a connection to something lasting. Others retreat into their libraries, through their quiet hands, copying words by lamplight. Pieces of the Roman world are carried forward into future centuries. In this way, Even as marble cracks and banners fade, ideas continue to flow like water beneath the surface, finding new paths. Picture it one last time. A farmer rises before dawn, stepping into damp fields beneath a silver mist, his rough hands cold as he begins his work. Listening to the faint trickle of a fountain as servants prepare his morning meal. Two lives, two rhythms, unfolding beneath the same fading empire, one shaped by labor, necessity, and uncertainty, the other cocooned in ritual, comfort, and memory. And yet, beyond both, history moves steadily forward, carrying them all silently, inevitably, toward the transformations yet to come. As our journey draws to a close, we'll leave these villas behind, along with the fields, the markets, and the ruins. In the conclusion, we'll gently step back into the present, reflecting on the quiet persistence of memory and the comforting distance between our own world and theirs. And now, we step away from the winding streets, the quiet ruins, and the distant echoes of the Roman world. The last faint sunlight slips beyond the horizon, casting the ancient stones in soft shadow. You hear only the whisper of the wind moving through forgotten arches, carrying with it the memories of countless lives, voices that once filled the empire with laughter, argument, prayer, and song, now dissolved into the silence of time. Take a slow, deep breath and let it out gently. As we leave the fading empire behind, imagine yourself walking along one of Rome's old roads. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of travelers, their footsteps layered one upon another. The air is cool, scented faintly with pine, and the world around you grows still, as though holding its breath. Somewhere in the distance, the soft trickle of water from an ancient aqueduct still flows, feeding the fields where new generations once rose after the empire's fall. Yet, in small, unbroken ways, pieces of Rome endure even now. In the quiet lines of law, in the curve of an arch, in the patterns of our languages, it is comforting, perhaps, to know that so much can change, and yet something always remains. Just as the Roman villas slowly gave way to new homes, and the marketplaces transformed, and the faiths shifted from one to another, so too does our world continue to evolve, layer upon layer, carrying whispers of what came before. And now those whispers fade, like footprints dissolving into sand, until there is only silence once more. As you listen, let yourself sink further into calmness, your breathing steady, slow, and even. The images of ancient streets, quiet villas, and silent ruins growing softer, lighter, until they dissolve completely. The Roman Empire has faded into history, but its memory lingers gently, like distant starlight reaching us from long ago. You are safe here, far from those restless centuries, safe in the quiet of the present moment, safe to rest. Close your eyes, if they're not closed already. Let your thoughts settle like soft dust upon forgotten stones. Let the weight of the day fall away, piece by piece. And as we leave Rome behind, we carry with us only the stillness, the calm, and the comfort of knowing that time moves gently forward, carrying us all along with it. Allow yourself to drift, slowly, deeper and deeper, until the edges of thought blur and soften. The echoes of ancient voices fall silent, and there is only quiet. Good night.